Hey, this is Ask the Pastor. This is where I take questions from the internet and I do my best to answer every question I get sent. Here's a question. Generational sin, ... Is it a thing? Yeah, it totally is. Let's talk about it. So often I give these kind of first glance questions and then we got to talk about, well, what do I mean by that? Because so often people have an understanding of what they mean when they ask something and it's not what I mean when I say yes to something. For one thing, I don't believe that it's true that children are punished eternally because of the sins of their parents, right? In the sense of my parents ate sour grapes, my teeth are turned on edge, right? My parents didn't follow God or didn't go to church, therefore I am going to suffer for that, or I'm going to after I become a Christian, somehow have to pay off those sins in purgatory or something like that. That's not true. But what is true is that when your parents mess up and when your parents do stuff that's wrong, then you tend to do it. And there's two ways that happens. The first is that you inherit their tendencies because you learn their tendencies. And so if you're a young man and your father beat your mother, and that's your model of like what marriage looks like, it's very likely that you are going to beat your wife. It follows in these generations this way, and you've got to do incredible work to break that generational cycle. It's important that you figure out what a marriage can look like apart from the way it was modeled, because there's that generational sin that gets carried down. The second reality is that you also suffer because you're in their environment for many years. So again, if your mother and father didn't go to church, then they probably didn't take you to Sunday school, and then you didn't receive like a good foundation in the stories of God and the things of God and the community of God that could surround you with love and support, and so you missed out on that. And that stinks. I'm sorry for you. I wish you had that. And the reason you didn't have that isn't because you did anything wrong. It's because somebody else did something wrong and you had to suffer the consequences. If your father drinks and spends all his money on alcohol, then you might not have enough money to eat. And so there are some temporal consequences for the fact that when our parents don't take good care of us, we suffer. That's not God punishing us. That's just the way sin works. Righteousness has residual benefits. If the people around you are righteous, even if you're not, you can benefit from their righteousness. And sin has residual consequences. If the people around you misbehave and hurt the world around them, you're part of the world around them. So you end up getting hurt, and your parents are especially true as examples of that. It's true for me. My father and his father and his father and his father abused alcohol. They were addicts. And my father did some incredible work in seeking to break the cycle of alcoholism in his life. He went to 12-step meetings and went through a long discipleship program in order to stop drinking. But I still inherited his alcoholism. That is, his tendency, his likelihood to use and abuse and overindulge in substances. For that reason, I've never drank alcohol, because I know that I have this generational sin on my life, that just my DNA, my genes, and also my training lead me towards immoderation. I'm not the kind of person that can do things a little bit and just kind of, just exercise self-control, Ryan. Not with addictive substances, not for me. That's not something that I can do because of this generational sin that gets carried down. And also, during the process when he was recovering from alcohol and afterwards when he was dealing with switched addictions and those kind of things, I had to deal with the ramifications of that. You know, him being gone or him being overly obsessed with certain meetings or certain programs, which is much preferable, I should add, to the alternative, which is having to deal with him drinking all the time. So that's what it looks like. And what do we do? Because it's not fair, right? Like, oh, some people have generational sin, some people don't. Some people have really good parents, some people don't. But then a lot of things aren't fair. Some people have really rich parents and they get to ride on yachts all the time, and some people don't. We got to break those habits. All right? Just like we got to break generational poverty. If your parents never had money, if your parents were poor, and money, that is treating it as if it has an expiration date, and when you get a windfall, you use it suddenly before the bills come, because if you've got no money when the bills come, then you've got no money, and that's the situation you've always lived in. And if you do have money when the bills come, the money disappears, so you might as well enjoy it while you got it. Well, that's not going to work for you. If you want to be free from generational poverty, you've got to live differently, and you've got to break that cycle. If you want to be free from generational abuse, you've got to break that cycle. If you want to be free from generational overeating, you've got to break that cycle. You've got to do the hard work, fight uphill over and against habit to break that sin so that your children don't have the same problem that you had. I hope this answers your question. If you liked this answer to the question, I hope you'll share it. If you didn't like it, I hope you'll engage with me and tell me why you didn't like it. And if you've got your own question, I hope you send it in. Give me a little comment down here. We can do a question answer. I did these other questions too. We can talk about those.